Hello guys, welcome to another video here on the channel. My name's Ash, you'll know me as Brommer18. In this video, we are, I guess, reigniting a series that I stopped quite a while ago, and that was my custom tactics series, but here on PES 2021. We stopped doing videos on PES 2021 over the last few months or so, with the emergence of obviously eFootball, the fact that they were discontinuing support for PES 21, and so with that a lot of people lost interest, and so it just sort of led to me stop doing videos. But you know, I'm still playing PES 21, I'm just loving the gameplay much more than FIFA, so I really just wanted to get back onto it, to be honest. And I know I've got a lot of subscribers, a lot of you guys that are PES players, and you subscribe to me because of the PES content, so I want to try and, you know, reach back out to you guys and try and reignite that as much as possible. So we're going to get back on it. You know, I'm really excited for this. In this video today, we're going to be covering Pep Guardiola's Manchester City tactics, currently top of the Premier League and absolutely flying, really, let's face it. So we're going to go into the details. We've got a fluid formation, so I'll show you how it changes depending on when in and out of possession. Go through all the detailed and advanced instructions on top of that as well. If you are new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so that you get notifications every time I upload. And on top of that, check out my Patreon, where you can get access to my PES 2021 custom tactics package, where I show you deep dive breakdowns, rankings, ratings of every tactic that I do cover on the channel. We also have an equivalent on FIFA as well, and also a couple of exclusive tactics videos each month, on top of a whole range of other great perks and rewards, so do go and check that out. With that being said, it is time to get into the tactic. So first things first, let's talk about the formation itself and the position changes. So naturally it is a 4-3-3, and we know how that play, that sort of positional play, kind of fluid system. And what we've got here is something that changes, as I mentioned, with a fluid formation. So make sure you do set it to a fluid formation. You want a 4-3-3. Now at kickoff is the same as when out of possession, when in possession, it doesn't really matter. Let's talk about what happens when out of possession. So when out of possession, we've got this 4-3-3. And with the midfield, we have a defensive midfielder, a central midfielder, an attacking midfielder. Now, when we compare that to the when in possession, you'll notice a slight change. And that is İlkay Gündoğan in this case, who changes from a central midfielder out of possession to an attacking midfielder in possession. And the reason being is that what we have, when you regain the ball deeper in your half and you're looking to play out from the back, what you find is when you've got two attacking midfielders, you find a bit of a gap, quite a large gap in between sort of the back five and the front five. And as a result, it becomes a little bit more challenging to play out from the back. However, because when out of possession, you've got him as central midfielder, if you happen to regain the ball in your own half, because he's dropped off a little bit deeper, he'll still be in a position where he can actually form a bridge, kind of a bridge between the front five and the defending five, and then as a result, because he's attacking midfielder when in possession, it means he'll still get into more of those advanced areas. You want him getting into the box as well, which is what someone like Gündoğan does so well. So it's important to note that as well. Another change we have positional wise is João Cancelo. Now, as has already been sort of signified a lot, Kyle Walker plays the role of an inverted fullback. You know, he's not overlapping as much occasionally, but not much, not bombing forward as much. What he does is he plays a supporting role as that sort of inverted fullback. And we'll talk about that when we come on to the advanced instructions about how we can replicate that. But João Cancelo, on the other hand, is at left midfield when in possession, but when out of possession, he's at left back. So why do we do that? Well, when he's at left back, out of possession, that's where you want him, because you want him in with your back line, you want him playing a defender. However, going forward, because of the advanced instructions that we've set, it will mean that he's also playing that inverted role. We don't want that. We still want him overlapping on the touchline, supporting the winger as much as possible. So when in possession, we actually change him to a left midfielder, and it does get him further forward without him being limited to that sort of false fullback advanced instruction that I'll talk about very, very shortly. So that's also important as well, to make sure that when in possession, you got him at left midfield. Finally, up front, we've got Phil Foden, who is actually a second striker. Now I'm going to go more in depth with this in the advanced instructions, so I'm not going to talk about that too much here, but just make sure to set him to second striker, and then I'll talk about it very, very shortly. So what about the attacking instructions then? Well, attacking style, we have possession game, and you know, I don't need to talk too much about this. We all know how Manchester City play, the retention of possession, keeping the ball, the best form of defending as well as attacking, build up short pass as well. Again, you're going to get players showing for the ball at a much shorter distance, offering those shorter options. Again, I don't need to talk too much about that one. Now, attacking area, that is centre, and that's very important. You want to make sure that the focus of your attacks is coming through the centre. It means more players are going to be coming into these central areas and giving you support when you're on the ball as much as possible. You will still have the ability to attack down the wings when you want, because of the fact that you're playing a left midfielder when in possession, and you've got wingers as well. They'll vary between those two. But to have the attacking area on centre means you're going to get a lot more shorter passing options, and that is what you are looking for, again, to play into that possession game. Positioning is maintain formation. Now, people get a lot mixed up with this. They think because it's that sort of attacking system, very sort of, you know, highly possessional and quite vertical, they think that you're going to have players rotating all over the pitch. In a Pep Guardiola system, this is a big no-no. You don't want players sort of going all over the place. It's actually very structured. Very, very structured, and what it means that a lot of players have a certain job and they stick to that job. For example, you won't start finding you know, wingers dropping into central midfield and things like that. You know, you won't find defensive midfielders bombing on forward. Very, very structured, and this is extremely important. Again, you don't want too much rotation between your players. They have their own areas, and that ties into that positional player, sort of Juego del Position approach. So that's very important as well. Finally, the support range is all the way down to 1, and as we spoke about, we want players showing for those short options as much as possible, coming to support the man on the ball. It will allow short interchanges, quick passing, lots of 1-2s, lots of give and goes. This enables you to do that, and it is the most effective way to keep possession when it is all the way down to 1. You're going to have a lot more players showing for the ball. In terms of the defensive instructions then, what do we do when out of possession? First things first, defensive style is frontline pressure. It's going to help you with that counter press when you do lose the ball. The containment area is wide, and that's going to allow you to shepherd the opposition out wide as much as possible. Something that I talk about in my tactics videos across both FIFA and PES is that you don't want teams really playing through you, particularly when you've got a fullback. Now, occasionally there are rare systems where they might encourage it because they've got more players in central areas. They encourage the team to come into the middle, but generally you're going to try and shepherd them out wide and make sure that you are stopping them from playing through you as much as possible. I always say, you know, when the teams get it out wide, at some point it's got to come into the central areas. So that's why you try and crowd out the central areas and shield them out wide. The pressuring is aggressive, and this is often something that we see in the centre-backs a lot. Players like John Stones, Laporte, Ruben Dias, they'll often try and step out as much as possible, really put it on the defender, you know, get touch tight to him and the person on the ball, or the man who's receiving the pass. And as a result, you're going to see this in action. It plays into that counter press very well, but also in the deeper areas of the pitch as well, you're still going to get players stepping out. And that's very important to make sure that you're not being passive even when the ball is in your own half and you are defending. The defensive line is up to 8, and that's going to give you a higher line. Haven't gone up to 10 here just to try and replicate their line. They don't try and play things like offside trap and really go extreme, such as what Liverpool will often do, for example, or someone like Bayern Munich. And that's what I wanted to try and get here. So we dropped the line off a little bit to 8, but that is still a high line compared to if it's 7, then you'll see them drop off a lot. So we have this one on 8. Finally, with the compactness, this is also on 8, again playing into the fact where we're trying to be compact, be narrow and get people out wide. It's not all the way up to 10, just to give you a little leeway in terms of getting out to the man when you're trying to press, when you're trying to counter press them and try and win the ball back. That's very important as well. You still want to make sure that you're not giving them absolutely acres of time and space out wide if and when you need to. So now it's time for us to move on to the attacking instructions. And the first things first is false fullbacks. And what this does is it means that your fullbacks will then come inside and play that sort of more inverted fullback role. And this is very important. This is why we have João Cancelo at left midfield, because if he was at left back when in possession, he would then be coming inside, and that's what we're trying to avoid. We don't want him coming inside, we just want Kyle Walker to come inside in certain moments. So with false fullbacks, it will mean that they'll come in, support the central areas, and this is what they do. It gives them more options for short passes, but also it means that they will help to protect against a counter attack should the opposition win it and look to burst forward quickly and effectively. Next up, we have hug the touchline, and that means that players on both flanks will stay close to the touchline. This is more important for the wingers, because what the wingers do is they get extremely wide. They stretch the pitch as much as possible, creating space in the middle for the likes of De Bruyne and Gundogan or Bernardo Silva to get into those half spaces, and that's where you find Kevin De Bruyne at his best, because it gives him space to drive into, and then often we see him put crosses in from the half spaces, score a lot of goals in those half spaces, and so this is playing into that. Now there is a bit of conflict with this one, because we have hug the touchline. It means that occasionally Kyle Walker is also getting out wide. That was something I couldn't really sort of fix. Sometimes he'll come in the central areas and support the central midfielders, etc. And other times he would stick close to the touchline. Again, something I just sort of had to deal with in that case. He will sometimes perform that role, but sometimes he'll be out wide. And unfortunately, the only way we could do this to get the wingers out wide, which really changed the system up, was to have that sort of conflicting thing. Now, I also mentioned earlier about the second striker, why we got him at second striker. Now, we don't want to set false 9, because if you look here in the attack instructions, you can add false 9. Now, we don't want that, because they don't play an out-and-out false 9. People think that just because they have maybe Foden or Grealish or Sterling sometimes sort of leading the line, that they're a false 9. But a false 9, they don't perform that role. You don't get someone dropping all the way into the deep areas in central midfield and get the players running in around them and looking to play them in. It doesn't quite work like that. What you do get though is someone, say Foden for instance, who we've got here, he will sort of drop off a little bit, not loads, not dramatically, just a little bit, and just show for them extra short passes. And what this then does is it gives more space for the likes of the attack midfielders to get in and around him, but also it allows them to keep building up, keep playing through and maintain those short passing options, as opposed to when he's a centre forward, he'll play on the last man more. You're not really looking for that, only occasionally. More so, you're looking for give and goes from him, and that's really what we're trying to do here. So that's why we set him to second striker. And now, if we go back onto the advanced instructions, we just have one defensively, and that is Gegenpress. It means that they will basically employ a counter press where they'll look to try and win it back immediately as much as possible, and then as a result, hopefully regain possession and they can continue their game plan. So what about set pieces? Let me quickly talk to you about how you should approach set pieces. Well, one of the things you need to do is to go on players to join the attack, and what this does is you can select 3 players who will actually go forward when you've got corners and wide free kicks. So it's very important to make sure that the 2 centre backs and the defensive midfielder Rodri are up there. So make sure to select these 3 in order to join the attack. In terms of set pieces themselves, defensively, what you find is actually a mixed area. They'll have some players acting as blockers and other players, often the centre-back, sort of acting as that more zonal orientated players. So it's best to go mixed when it comes to defending lots of corners and wide free kicks. Attacking wise, there are a couple of options you can do. Often what you'll find is they're trying to get their centre-backs and their tall players running in on it. So they start them from deep and get onto the ball. So the best way to do this is, one, you can set the train, and this is something they do a couple of times, particularly someone like John Stones is quite effective in this system because he's got quite good get off in those set piece situations. So you can use the train, or you can use dash, which means they're going to start real far back and look to run across to the 6-yard box and try and nod it in. You also might notice in the gameplay that I actually score from a short corner as well. And this is something they do occasionally, not relentlessly, but sometimes. They'll get one runner coming in. I use the touchline option, in which case from the short corner options, and it will bring a player close. Unfortunately, it might usually be a centre-back, but it does allow you to sort of play a 1-2 with the corner taker, which in this case was Kevin De Bruyne, and then you can play it in from there. And then we do end up getting a goal from Phil Foden. So that's very well worked as well. I'm sure some of you may be wondering how this changes depending on the personnel. However, there are not really many changes. You might be thinking when someone like Gabriel Jesus plays, for instance, that he would be a centre forward instead of a second striker. Well, for one, he plays out wide a lot more, and at least this season. And as a result, you've not really seen him be the central figure too much. But when he has been, I've noticed there's not really too many changes. His instincts does mean he does try and get in behind a bit more, but he still does play that role of trying to drop off just a little bit and help with the build-up play. And so as a result, I actually keep him at second striker. The same would also go for if you're playing someone like Sterling or Grealish up front as well. You don't really want to change that. It's better to try and play into the system rather than adapt to the personnel. That's just not really something that Guardiola does too much. You know, we've seen it again this season with them having, you know, only one striker. They've not changed. They've not mixed things up. So as a result, it's all about playing into the system. So I wouldn't worry too much about trying to adapt it to different personnel. He's very set in his ways and he will go about it any way he sees fit. Right then, on that note, it is time to finish the video off there. If you've got any questions about the tactic whatsoever, make sure to let me know in the comment section and I will get back to you. Don't forget to check out my Patreon where you can get access to my PES 21 custom tactics packages with deep dive on all the tactics I cover, ratings and rankings as well, on top of a whole host of other great perks and rewards. Give the channel a subscribe if you haven't done so already and ring the bell to get notifications every time I upload, and drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it as well. Check out the links in the description, such as my Twitter, give me a follow on there, and also all of my affiliate links where you can get access to a whole range of stuff, including my equipment and my gear. You can get them for the same price that you were going to pay for anyway, but it does give me a little kickback and it's a great way to support the channel without having to pay any more money, which is always very important. On that note, I think we're going to finish it off there. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, I will see you for that one.